Hello, small business supporters. I'm Savvy, and welcome back to Savvy Writes Books, the channel where we talk about books and business. And because I don't like to get into internet drama unless it has a direct connection to books and business in some way, I wasn't even going to comment on this topic at first, because you guys know that I do get into internet drama on this channel. We've talked about like Gabby Hanna, and we've talked about people like that before, but only when it has a connection to either books or book review ethics or book publishing or to business and business ethics and that kind of thing. Originally, I wasn't going to talk about this situation with the Try Guys because I didn't think there was really anything for me to say until I started watching some other people's videos and I saw some things that I think did tie into the business ethics side of what I talk about on this channel. Mainly opening up this whole discussion about what it means to make your personal life part of your branding and how that feeds into the ethics of kind of selling ourselves as a product in a way, or having the attention that other people give us being the products that make us money when we are creators or influencers on the internet and things like that. This whole situation sort of started to remind me of when Dave and Rachel Hollis got divorced back in 2020, and I did a video on that. And in that video, I kind of talked about how, yeah, sometimes it feels a little unethical to give commentary on people's marriage, but if you made your marriage part of the product, and that's the type of image and branding that you were selling to people, then it turns into more of a consumer review type of thing. And I think that's kind of the line that we're starting to get to with this situation. But like everything else in life, I think that there are multiple angles to this issue and that there are layers of complexity and nuance to this that I want to delve into in today's video. So with all of that in mind, get you some nuts!
Get you some nuts!
There was lots of memes.
Makes me wonder if I should pick up lesbianism.
Chicago.
You guys asked for it.
Hey everyone! Welcome back to my channel, or if you're new, welcome for the first time. I'm Savvy, and this is Savvy Writes Books, the channel where we talk about books and business, where every Friday at 11 a.m. Central, and often other times throughout the week, I put up new videos all about things going on in the books and business world, including discussions of the movement to take down multi-level marketing companies, the anti-MLM movement, including discussions of ethics within the book publishing industry, book reviews, reviews of bad business books, and just general discussions of business ethics and how that's going on in the internet sphere and things like that. So today, let's talk about the whole controversy going on with the Try Guys. Now, I want to get a couple things out of the way first, and first I want to start with the reason that I originally wasn't going to talk about this, and then correcting some of the things that I originally talked about on my second channel, Your Morning Guru. So if you don't know, I have a second channel. It's called Your Morning Guru. It's linked in the description below. On that channel, that's where I live stream every morning at 7 a.m. Central Time. It's a morning show. It's more fun than Good Morning America because we talk back to you in the chat. At least that's what I personally think. And we're running a 5K for charity soon, so check it all out, linked in the description below. But last week on that channel, I did originally give some commentary on the whole situation going on here, and there are some things that I still agree with, and there are some things that I now disagree with in retrospect, and then there are some additional things I want to dive into. But first, let's just give a whole overview of the situation for anyone who doesn't know what's going on here. I learned all of this against my will on Twitter and YouTube over the past week or so, so this is pretty wild how fast news can spread like rapid fire on the internet. So for a brief summary, there was a very popular, I guess still is, a very popular YouTube channel called The Try Guys. They got their start doing things for BuzzFeed, and the whole purpose of their show is that they try different things and see what it's like and give reviews of it and things like that. Honestly, when I first heard of them, which was like a week ago, I was like, that's kind of like what we do on Your Morning Guru. We'd be like, we're gonna try intermittent fasting this week. We're gonna try running a 5K this week. We're gonna try CrossFit this week. Like, we would do that kind of thing too, but they were more popular because they're probably more likable than me and my stupid loud ass. Anyway, so that's what they got popular for. There were 4 of them, and recently one of them got in a big controversy because it was found that he was allegedly having an affair, cheating on his wife with a younger woman who was one of his employees. So the Try Guys, as they got big, they started creating like other YouTube channels and spin-off shows, and one of those was called The Food Babies, and there was this girl from the channel The Food Babies named Alex, and one of the Try Guys, Ned, decided to have an affair with her, and they were caught making out somewhere in public, and it all went viral, and everybody started to get disappointed, not just because of the potential infidelity of the situation, but also because Ned had made such a big part of his branding being the family man. That was kind of his character. He was the family man. He was the guy who loved his wife, kind of like the whole thing we saw with Adam Levine and the whole thing we'd seen with John Mulaney, right? This whole thing of like guys who make a characteristic, being the family man, loving my wife. If we're gonna compare to Dave Hollis again, being an ally, getting an ally tattoo and saying I'm an ally. ally, people are going to hold you to a higher standard to follow through with that and feel a little bit blindsided and taken advantage of when it turns out that that was kind of an act and that was just your part of your branding and that wasn't actually the life that you were living. Which of course is going to lead into this whole discussion about what it means to monetize our personal lives and make branding based on ourselves as people, because do we owe that to our audiences to always be the character that we play on the internet? Or should we not be playing characters on the internet at all? I mean, I don't know, I'm pretty genuine on the internet, but regardless, that's a whole discussion that I do want to get into. But from there, the Try Guys decided to fire Ned. He was one of the original founders of the company, and they said, nope, we're gonna get rid of you and we're gonna move forward without you. They took about a month of time to do this, conducting an HR investigation, looking into all the angles of the issue before making that decision. One of the reasons, I believe, is that the woman that he had the affair with was one of his subordinates. She was employed by the company that he had ownership in, and because of that, if there ever were a situation where she felt harassed or coerced in any way, she wouldn't really have any recourse because he had direct power over her and her employment. So that created a situation that kind of took away some of the ethics and kind of took away some of the ability for the situation to be fully consensual, according to what some people have to say, or it at least opened up the potential that something bad could have happened. Whether or not it did, I have no idea. Now, the reason that I originally didn't want to get involved in this at all is, and this is what I talked about on Your Morning Guru a little bit, is that to me, looking at people's relationships and giving commentary on that seems wrong, because this is before I knew how much it was a part of their branding. We're going to go into this from a business angle in a second. But I wanted to say why I didn't really comment on the whole like Adam Levine situation and why I didn't really get involved in a lot of people's like potential infidelity and things like that. One of the reasons that I never try to pass moral judgment on that kind of thing is that it becomes way too easy to out people. So if you guys remember, I made this video about a year and a half ago now where I talked about the controversy that happened with one of my favorite authors who has now become a good friend of mine, Becky Albertalli, author of Love, Simon, and that whole universe that created the Love, Simon movie that came out a couple years ago. Anyway, you know, she's become a great friend now. She's wonderful, but the controversy that she ended up in was the fact that she kept getting all this criticism for being a straight author writing gay books. In reality, she was never straight. She was just in the closet and didn't want to be out about that, because no one ever owes anyone having to be out about something like that, and people are allowed a level of personal life and privacy, and it's not safe for people to be out about everything regarding their own sexual orientation, relationship status, etc. in their life, because there is still a lot of prejudice and a lot of judgment out there. So in that situation, because she was receiving that criticism, she felt pressured to come out in order to save her career. So when I see situations where it comes out that someone was caught with someone other than their spouse, someone was caught with someone cheating, and then people start automatically saying this must be cheating, this must be infidelity, I start to like say I don't want to touch this, because there's so much of an opportunity that if we set the precedent that that's an okay thing to just start wildly speculating on when it comes to people's personal lives, it can become way too easy to pressure people to out themselves if they are polyamorous or non-monogamous in some way or in an open relationship. I believe, as far as I know, that Ned, the guy who cheated, is straight, so I'm not necessarily talking about outing someone as LGBTQ, but I think a lot of people don't realize that in this world we live in, you know, heteronormative monogamy is considered the standard. That's considered the default, and that's very unfortunate. That's why people have to come out as anything else, because people naturally assume that to be the default otherwise. And yes, it is much more common for people to be in monogamous relationships and marriages. However, I'm just always scared that we could end up in a situation where someone has cheated on their spouse, or like it has the appearance of that, and then they decide to, and then someone tries to break the story and someone starts talking about it, and it turns out that they were in a non-monogamous relationship the entire time with all parties consenting to that the whole time, and that there was no infidelity whatsoever involved. Now, in order to squash those rumors and save their career, they would be forced to come out about that. They would be forced to come out about not being monogamous. And there are a lot of people out there who say that that's not a big deal, that you could just say that and put the rumors to rest, but that's kind of the same as forcing someone to come out as LGBTQ to put the rumors to rest. Because I don't know if people realize this, but like a lot of society does not accept non-monogamy as an option. A lot of people still face prejudice for that. I have friends that like talk about how they could get fired from their jobs if people knew about that. It's considered like an okay thing because people consider that two, like it used to be one man, one woman, but now it's considered that like two people in a relationship is the default. And if you go beyond that, then it's just fine to assume that you're a lying sack of shit. And I don't think it's fair for people to have to come out and potentially face, you know, families who are are unaccepting about that, tons of backlash, whatever other situations could arise. So that's just my opinion on that situation and why I don't get involved. Now, all of that goes out the window because of two reasons. First of all, learning that she was a subordinate of his, and second of all, learning that he had made the marriage and his relationship such a part of the branding and had kind of opened up that door for people to get involved in his personal life by making that part of the branding that he was selling as his image of himself. I think that those kind of make it a little stickier. However, I did want to talk about that angle because we're going to look at some posts on Reddit about the whole Try Guys situation, then we're going to get into kind of the business and branding angle and see what some people on Reddit had to say about that as well. But first, I wanted to look at this post that I found on the Try Guys subreddit that I was kind of sad to see how many people had downvoted this and how many people had just kind of gone off on the original poster in the comments saying things that I thought were kind of ignorant and I don't know if I'll say prejudice, but just kind of ignorant in general. So let's take a look. So this was posted about 2 weeks ago, I believe, before more of the information about this story came out, and it says, where's the proof that Ned and Ariel were not in an open relationship? And I'm like, you know, that was my first thought too whenever I hear someone has cheated. Like, yes, it's more likely that someone cheated because monogamy is such a more common thing that people do, right? But at the same time, I never want to make an assumption that could force someone to have to out themselves because that's not my business and that's not my life, right? That's where I kind of get a little sus with all of this. So anyway, this person posted this and I thought, you know, that's a great question, but it got downvoted and it got removed. And I was like, why? What's wrong with this question? All the comments on here I thought were just, I couldn't get it. It said, I mean, even if that's the case, it seems pretty clear to me that Alexandria wasn't in an open relationship with her fiance. I don't know anything about them, so that's entirely fair too. This one says, I mean, he admitted to cheating in his apology. That's what people kept saying, but I read his apology and no, he didn't. He said, I lost focus and had a consensual workplace relationship. I lost focus doesn't necessarily mean I cheated on my wife. It could also mean I lost focus of the branding that I had created about being a monogamous family man, right? And it was vague enough probably for legal purposes, but there is enough plausible deniability that in that apology, I'm like, I don't know for a fact that you cheated and I'm not willing to set the precedent that it's okay to speculate in those type of ways. That's my personal opinion and I know that's controversial. This person said, as someone in a poly relationship, I'm literally stunned you think this is a possibility. What evidence is there that they've ever been open? Why does there need to be evidence? That's like saying, it's like talking to a man and saying to a bisexual man, you've only ever dated women. What evidence is there that you were bisexual? Or literally, this is what happened to my friend Becky, right? The fact that she had only ever publicly been in relationships with men and had publicly been married to a man for as long as she was famous. And people said, well, there was no evidence that you had ever been in a relationship with a woman, so why would we assume that? It still ended up in a situation that involved with a pressured outing. So that's why I'm like, you don't need evidence. No one owes you evidence of something that they're not out about. And again, I just want to make it very clear. This situation, I am like 99% sure that is not the case. The overwhelming probability is that he's a cheating sack of shit, right? But I'm just not comfortable setting the precedent of that for the future. And that's part of why I'm just kind of like, I get a little, I don't know here. This person says the issue is he advertised himself as a monogamous person who loved only his wife, and Alex is an employee, so that is inappropriate too. I agree with the second part. It is absolutely inappropriate to have a relationship with an employee because you are putting them in a position, I guess this is some business ethics too, I guess. If you are someone who is responsible for someone's paycheck, if you own the company that controls their livelihood, yeah, you end up in a situation where if there ever were a situation where she felt harassed or coerced in any way, she wouldn't have much recourse because he was the owner of the company, right? So that part I completely agree with was unethical. But this part, I don't know, did he most people don't say that they're monogamous. They don't say, hi, I'm monogamous. Most people just let other people assume that, just like we let people assume that we're straight. I don't let anyone assume I'm straight. I'm very open about that. But my point is, it's once again considered like a heteronormative default, which I'm not a fan of. I'm not a fan of people having any assumptions as the default. No evidence of strict monogamous. They are married with children. Again, married with children. That's like saying this person got married and had kids, so there's no way they could be bi. This person got married and had kids, so there's no way they could be a non-straight or non-monogamous sexual orientation. That's just incredibly ignorant. And I agree with this person who got downvoted into fucking oblivion. That isn't proof married couples can be in open relationships. The one where it's impossible to assume a decade-long marriage would be monogamous, I guess, like, that doesn't mean anything. So again, I thought that I thought that people were being really mean to the original poster, in my personal opinion, because the comments just kind of showed complete ignorance, and it made me feel like this is, because when I talk about heteronormativity, that doesn't just mean straight people. Heteronormativity in general is usually this idea that we all are going to grow up to get in an opposite gender relationship, reproduce and have children with one person that we stay with for the rest of our lives. That is what the heteronormative world model is telling us, right? At least that's how I've always understood it, and that then elements of queer theory are anything that start to divert from that. So even like choosing not to have kids is considered, you know, bucking the stereotype of heteronormativity. While you might still be a heterosexual person, you know, it's outside of what the heteronormative pressures of the world are telling you to do. So I just thought that that's one reason that I'm just like, I do not want to get involved in other people's infidelity or whatever, because I don't want to ever contribute to a situation where it feels like the harassment that forces someone's outing, if that ever is a situation that is to happen. That I'm just not okay with that. So that was the first thing. However, that all said, in this particular situation, it does seem likely that this was straight up infidelity. And it did go against branding. So let's talk about that a little bit. This post on the subreddit here says, Ned and Ariel's choice to monetize and market themselves as the perfect couple has been going on for years. Don't know how they never worried about a jinx. So this is kind of how you start to, it gets really risky to brand and monetize elements of your personal life as your branded character online, because then that gets intertwined with your business's branding. When I've done my Deep Dave series on Dave Ramsey and talked about how Dave Ramsey will fire people for violating his righteous living policy that is based on his specific brand of Christianity, other people who are Christian have been fired too. It's based on his specific rules of what he determines is the right way to live your life, and if you live your personal life outside of that, he fires you. I think that's one reason that it can get really risky to start meshing personal lives with business branding. And to an extent, I wonder about it myself sometimes, because I'm like, I'm not a perfect person. I mean, I've never cheated on my spouse with a subordinate. That would be insane. But like, outside of like extreme examples like that, you have these situations where it's like, yes, I want elements of my personal life to be part of my branding. I want people to know the fact that I'm funny, I like making jokes, I like making puns, that I like doing literary analysis, that I like breaking down books on YouTube, that I like doing those kind of things. And those are things that are personal interests of mine and are genuine to who I am as a person. And so I want all of that to be part of my branding, but I don't know where the line is for a lot of people, because a lot of people take their whole life, in this case, their relationship was part of the branding, the fact that they were this perfect relationship that the audience could want to aspire to. So this is on one of the company's channels called Second Try, which is a channel that was produced by the Try Guys company, and it says Ned and Ariel being absolutely perfect, and it's a video of just, I guess, the two of them being perfect. It's a monetized content that is created about these people and their personal lives, and so him being a devoted husband to his wife is part of the branding, and that's kind of scary. However, what really told me that I needed to make this video was this clip that I found. I guess this is in the H3H3 production subreddit, and it says, found a clip of the Ned Fulmer relationship ethics seminar with his wife. Okay, so this is where I started to be like, okay, there were relationship seminars too. This started giving me Dave and Rachel vibes. You guys remember Dave Hollis and Rachel Hollis, who I've critiqued on this channel because they're self-help authors and I review self-help books all the time. The two of them were running marriage conferences. They were running this conference called Rise Together, where people would spend over $1,000 to buy tickets to this marriage seminar, where they would then, you know, give you training on how to have a better relationship. And their whole credentials was that they were this perfect relationship that you could aspire to. Very open about having no official marriage counseling credentials, no psychiatry credentials, no license as a therapist, nothing like that. Instead, they were just running this conference with the fact that they had a great relationship and could teach you their ways as their whole claim to credibility. So a lot of people got mad when they got divorced. They felt a little bit bamboozled. They felt like, were you lying to us? Were you kind of scamming us out of money this whole time when you didn't have the secrets to marriage either? So this is very similar. This is something I found as well. So this is from the Santa Clara blog called The Try Guy on Campus. It's from 2020, and it says, YouTube celebrity speaks to students about relationship ethics. Ned Fulmer of YouTube's The Try Guys and his wife Ariel Fulmer were invited to Santa Clara by the Markkula Center of Applied Ethics on February 6 to discuss their journey as a celebrity couple. 6 years ago, the Fulmers began creating videos together on YouTube on topics ranging from finding a house, remodeling, having a son, and other topics related to their life together. The Try Guys also create videos for YouTube discussing offbeat scenarios and situations in order to educate audiences. The Try Guys have over 6.8 million subscribers. Well, yeah, they're huge. They have such a huge following. The event was at capacity and registration closed shortly after ticket sales began. So, keyword here, sales. Ticket sales. So this was not like a thing where it's like asking a friend for advice, right? Because when I talk about like bad self-help stuff, people always bring up, well, do you have to be credentialed to give someone advice? Absolutely not. I think going to your friends for advice, going to your family for advice, talking to other people that you love and trust in your life and getting real world experience from them and having them share with you what worked for them and things like that is wonderful. It's when you start to sell something that you start to position yourself as an expert. So in this case, we have people who bought tickets. I'm assuming that Ned and Ariel got paid to do this seminar, and I'm not blaming her at all because as far as we know, from her perspective, this was all fine and dandy. There wasn't anything. Although, I don't know. I can't read any minds. I'm just saying as far as we as the audience know. So they held this seminar. A relationship has to be about giving, has to be about doing things selflessly, because otherwise it's kind of impossible, Ned said. That's so ironic, doing things selflessly. Was he being selfless when he made out with one of his employees? Suddenly we started thinking of sacrifices not as an exchange, but as a gift, as an act of love that you are doing selflessly for your partner, for your family. And once you start thinking of it like that, giving gifts feels awesome. This really aged like milk right here. It really did. Oh no. This reminds me of like, looking at some of the old Rachel and Dave marriage advice videos. It really does feel like that. After describing the journey of their relationship, the Fulmers answered questions from the audience. So there was a Q&A segment and people could ask them for marriage advice, and people paid for tickets to this event and they got paid to do this event. So this whole thing is a little bit shady that kind of thing was going on as well, and that not only was the relationship part of their branding, but they were literally selling it to people, not just by selling it as part of their branding, but literally selling it transactionally to people by having them pay for ticket prices. That's the part that ends up a little weird. On top of that, there's the other angle to this that we did start to discuss on Your Morning Guru as well, which is the whole angle of betrayal, not just of your spouse, but of your friends and business partners. So even if we were in an alternate universe where the two of them were in a non-monogamous relationship and she had consented to this ahead of time and they were all cool with everything there and they were keeping that under wraps, there's still a level of betrayal to your business partners and your friends by letting this get public in the first place, letting a situation that appears for all intents and purposes to be infidelity and likely is infidelity, a situation like that to get so public and to do damage to the brand that you started with your friends. Because when you and friends, going into business together with friends is a risky move, and it's one that you really have to do with people you trust. I know this because I've gone into business with friends many times before and only once has it worked out, and that's obviously with my friend RK, who writes books along with me and runs Your Morning Guru with me and is probably editing this video right now. That is the only long-term friendship and business partnership that has ever worked out for me long-term.
So you're telling me there's a chance?
In other cases, either the business venture completely fails or the friendship falls apart, or both. A lot of times you have to have a lot of trust in someone when you're putting together not only all the work that you do together, but also now you've got money involved together, things like that. I've talked before about how, like, for me, like, if I caught Tyler sleeping with another woman, I would be way less mad than if I caught RK getting a tattoo with a friend other than me. And there's some reasons for that. Like, first of all, women are hot, so, like, at least I could understand it. The only thing I wouldn't be able to understand would be to be like, why didn't you invite me? And if he was like, well, the girl's not into you, then I'd be like, well, then obviously she has no taste and probably has COVID, so you probably shouldn't be sleeping with her anyway. And then the other reason on top of that is just like, you have to have a strong level of trust with someone that you are a best friend with and a business partner with. That's just the level that there is. And then also we got to keep in mind that like cheating means different things to different people. So like for some couples out there, cheating is like this huge deal breaker that is the biggest breach of trust you can possibly have. And that is valid. That is a valid moral stance to have. And a lot of couples do have that. You set that up, you go into a relationship knowing that.
What? Did we just become best friends? Yup!
And then, for other couples, cheating is like something that you don't like doing and that you don't want to do, but it's like if you do it, your partner gets like as mad as they would if you forgot to do the dishes, and you apologize and you move on as quickly as that. It really depends on the people, on their individual standards, and on what that particular couple has agreed to, which is why I don't like to judge couples and their inner workings from a distance. But there is that level of business partner and friendship trust in there that when you know you are going into a business with someone where they are going to brand themselves as the person who is faithful and the family man and the monogamous, I don't think he branded himself as monogamous, but the faithful family man type, you kind of have to know that if you are to stray from that image you've built for yourself publicly, then your business partners and your friends are going to feel betrayed because you are doing stuff that actively hurts the brand that they put their trust in you to build together. Having been burned by friends who were business partners in the past, never from a situation as serious as this, but from other situations, I know how tough that has to feel for them personally. So that's the other element of this. And this all leads into this discussion of how much of our personal lives is it ethical to put into our brands? Because time and time again, we've seen whenever people make their relationship or their marriage part of the brand, suddenly it becomes acceptable to look at their marriage with a microscope. It becomes acceptable to zoom in with the magnifying glass and look at the inner workings of what would be incredibly invasive to do with anybody else, because they are selling that to you as who they are. They're selling that as the product that you are aspiring to be like them, that you are seeing them as a role model. The parasocial relationship is created intentionally as a marketing technique. So at that point, it definitely is ethical for people from the outside to start looking in and saying, hey, was I sold something that wasn't what it said on the tin, and things like that. So when you get into that situation, it makes me start to wonder, how ethical is it to make our personal lives part of our branding, and how ethical is it to judge other people for branding their own personal lives? I don't know, and that's a thing that I always wonder sometimes. I always get scared that like I don't ever want to make my personal life too much of my branding, because while I'm a pretty open book, I'm very honest with people, I'm pretty direct and in your face. You know, we all make mistakes in life. And when I say we all make mistakes in life, that is not excusing Ned and what he did, making a mistake and having a lengthy affair with a subordinate at work. That's a pretty big mistake that you make very consciously, and like, that's not what I'm talking about. But I'm saying if we expand on that, if we expand on this whole concept of branding in our personal lives, at what point is it too much? At what point should we say, hey, this is enough, we should stop doing this? And this is a question not just for influencers online, but for reality TV and for things like that. And then we get to these things as well with the rise of social media, with people starting to see that as being ethical to do to everyone, not just public figures. Like we see if someone is being an asshole out in public, someone might take a picture of them and tweet it to their employer and say, look at this person being an asshole, and then they end up getting fired, which it's like, yeah, you shouldn't have been being an asshole, but also that leads to like corporations have so much power and are now the morality police, and that gets a little sticky as well. So the whole situation, I'm not here to give you one answer or to say that there is a cut and dry solution to this. I'm just saying that this is a complicated situation that I do believe opens up a lot of questions about what it means to brand yourself to an audience and things like that. I'm really interested in what you guys think about all of this, and if you could let me know in the comments below. Additionally, I briefly want to talk about the SNL skit that came out about all this as well, because that's something that we talked about on Your Morning Guru, and at first I was like, I kind of have mixed feelings about this, but then when I gained more information about the situation, I was like, no, this skit was a stupid move and it sucks. So basically, about a week ago on Saturday Night Live, there was this skit about the whole Try Guys thing. And at first glance, without knowing much about the situation, I actually thought the skit was kind of funny, and I was like, why is everyone so mad about this? And then I learned about the details of the situation, okay? So it starts off with there's this reporter who's like outside the White House about to give these big pieces of news on foreign policy and huge world events and things that are going to affect us all. And then he gets this notice that the Try Guys are going live to give a video with an update on everything, so he decides to cut to that instead. And every time a piece of breaking news comes in about major world events, he cuts back to that. I thought that was funny because I was like, okay, this is kind of parodying the way that we're also easily sucked in by stories about celebrities and creators online, that we sometimes ignore the bigger things going on because there's a lot of times we just get so obsessive about these smaller things going on in our lives. And so I thought that was a funny setup for a joke at first, but then it got a little weird because if it just kept doing things like that and then making other jokes about the ways that fans develop these parasocial relationships, and if it just had filled the skit with like little puns about those kind of things along the way, I would have been all on board. From there, it kind of went into this whole thing where they started talking about like, well, obviously the relationship was consensual, so who cares? People cheat all the time, so who cares? And they were kind of saying these things genuinely and starting to kind of making fun of the audience for being disappointed in someone who had branded himself as something he was not, and also for making fun of the other guys for being disappointed in a best friend and business partner who had betrayed their business and their trust, which I was like, okay, from a business owner angle, for someone who has been burned by friends and business owners in the past, and for someone who that's like a very sacred and very trusting kind of relationship, like, I can totally understand what they're feeling right now, and the skit really just didn't capture the nuances of that whatsoever. It really looked like, from a biased perspective of like, Ned did nothing wrong and that's the whole joke, and that wasn't very funny, because then we also learned that Ned has a friend who writes for Saturday Night Live, and not only that, but it's a lot of people are pretty sure that he was part of writing that skit, so it seems like it was intentionally biased in his favor, and people could see what they were doing, they could see right through the agenda, and it ended up being pretty cringe in the end. So the skit was kind of a whole mess as well, and I think that it did really ignore a couple big angles, one being the fact that when you are a boss who is in charge of someone's paycheck, that having a relationship with them opens up a whole set of potentially unethical situations that could happen, and when the skit was just like, well, yeah, it was consensual, obviously. Like, there's a lot of stuff that people are still looking into. There's like, the guys, when they originally fired Ned, they did a whole internal HR investigation to determine if it was ethical to keep him as part of the company or not, considering how that could open up a legal battle. And even a lot of people have been talking about, well, why was Alex, the woman that he cheated with, why are we not being critical of her? Why are we being so, lenient on her? And a lot of people are saying that they probably can't shit talk her because there could potentially be a lawsuit because of the fact that she is a subordinate. She can't get fired for this, because if she got fired for having a relationship with a superior, that could be a really risky situation once again because of the levels at the company that everyone's at. So that's why the whole situation is just like, you want to avoid that at all costs, right? So the skit really seemed to avoid that whole part of the issue, and it also ignored the fact that friends being betrayed at a friend doing something that hurt their brand isn't just like, oh no, now we don't have our content, isn't internet content creation so silly that we're worried about our paychecks. It is the fact that when you build a brand with friends, you want to be able to trust them that they're not going to betray you in a way that's going to hurt the company and is going to hurt your career potentially and your own livelihood and income, because that's a lot of trust to put into another person. So those are kind of my thoughts on this whole situation. My takeaways: don't run marriage seminars, don't do that kind of stuff, it's stupid. Don't monetize your personal life, and don't have affairs with your employees. All of that stuff. Anyway, I'm off to film more videos and monetize my personal life. I'll see you guys again soon. In the meantime, keep on supporting small businesses and have a great day. Bye!
Get you some nuts.
There was lots of memes.
Makes me wonder if I should take up lesbianism.
Chicago.
You guys asked for it.